First of all, started out with black and white, and it was kind of like Robert Benchley once described the cuts in French newspapers as all looking as if they'd been made on bread. Well, that was television at a certain period. And then they improved it, and then they colored it, and that's where we are now. Not quite. Because somebody has come out with the thing that we shall all be seeing soon, which is the hologram.
And this is like from the 50s, 60s. Alan Watts is freaking awesome. But, I just want to bring this to people's attention because he does, bring him to people's attention too, because he is an amazing man and has very, very great thoughts, very good philosophy. And I surely implore people to check him out. And he'll say something that will catch on, and that'll just say, let me give this guy a chance. And hopefully this can be your moment for that. But with the holograms, what is it, Project Bluebeam? It's very possible that we already have these holograms he's about to discuss. And I think that's why movie companies and music producers and Hollywood tries to buy the rights of everyone's music and pretty much own their creation, because they summon that demon, so to speak. People say they sold their soul, and what they mean by that is they're going to be forever memorialized in a digital universe because they can always come back to life. And with the book burnings and everything, Hitler didn't make people burn their books. I guess he did make them, but at the same time, people would celebrate. They had book burning parties and everything like that. So people were in on it and everything. And that's what's happening with this cancel culture. And this is how history rewrites itself. And these people have a digital library. And what they're able to do, because everything is light, even word light. And that's why there's simulation theory and things like that. So what these people, the elite, can do is reincarnate these people. However, they're not going to be real. They're just going to be holograms that look, feel, and they're going to get really good. It's because people are going to be in a super simulation. I mean, like I said, we might be, but...
A television image produced by laser beams where you see a three-dimensional figure out in the air in front of you. I say, isn't that marvelous? And then, but of course, when you go up to it and you put your hand on it, your hand goes right through it. You can't touch it. And you see, that was always the trouble with television. Because you look at whatever you're seeing behind a screen. It's intangible, it doesn't smell, and it won't relate to you. So these are further problems to be solved in the techniques of electronic reproduction. And they'll do it. They'll first of all manage a way in which the electronic emission sources can solidify and make the air vibrate.
And this gets into chemtrails, and I mean, if there's all these particles in the air, especially metallic particles, for them to become a solid shape, actually, it's not too hard. Get things moving fast enough, and they become solid. Just like spinning a glow stick around on the circle, it looks like a solid circle and everything because it's moving so fast. And it almost feels, but if you got that to the speed of light, it'd be a whole different story. I mean, it would, look completely different. I mean, be more solid. Like the entire structure would be solid.
So that you go up and you touch the figure, and you won't be able to push your hand through it, because the air will be going faster than your hand. Imagine that. You can actually, if there's a beautiful dancer on the television, you'll be able to go up and embrace her. But she won't know you're there. And she won't respond to you. And you'll say, well, that's not very lifelike. Just as they once said, if the photograph doesn't move, it's not very lifelike. If it doesn't talk, it's not very lifelike. They'll next say, if the reproduction in 3 dimensions solid doesn't respond, it's not very lifelike. So they'll have to figure out a technique for doing that. What will they do? Well, I tell you. Sitting in your home, where you're watching the scene on a kind of stage now, not on a screen, there'll be a TV camera observing you. And that TV camera...
This is freaking... He's predicting a future. You know, I'm certain that there's been others, talked about it, but he actually goes in deep with this. I'm telling you, check out Alan Watts.
Will report back everything you do into a computer. And the computer will so manage each bit of information, that's to say, each tiny little granule unit of information going into the image that you're looking at, that it will immediately decide what is the appropriate response to the approach that you are making to the image. Won't that be crazy? She may slap you in the face, and she may kiss you. You never know. But then...
That's where we're coming to. Reality TV shows are going to be virtual reality shows. And that's, this whole totalitarian regime that's taking place due to the virus, everyone's just been locked away in their own prisons. And it's like, okay, well, we need to do something. We don't have them under complete control yet. And so they're working on technology for that.
Say, no, this is still not really the kind of reproduction we wanted. What we wanted when we looked at this scene is to be able to identify with one of the characters. We wanted to not just watch the drama that's being performed on the stage in front of us, but actually get into it. And so we want to be wired in with electrodes on the brain, so that we will actually feel the emotions of the people acting on the stage. And so eventually we will get absolutely perfect reproduction. And we will be able to see that image so vividly that we shall become it. And so the question arises, could that be where we are already? Are we a reproduction which over the centuries of evolution has worked out to be a replica of something else that was going on, and we are where we always were? Now the next fantasy concerns the idea that every living being thinks it's human. And that means a plant, a worm, a virus, a bacterium, a fruit fly, a hippopotamus, a giraffe, a rabbit. That all these beings, wherever they feel out from, as we feel out from our bodies, feel that they're in the middle. That is to say, wherever you look, you turn your head around, and you feel you're in the middle of the world. You feel you're the center. And a rabbit or a fruit fly feels that it is a center. And it has around it a company of associates who look like it. And therefore, this creature knows that these are the right people, just as we know when we look at human beings. They're the right people. They are one of us. Only, of course, we have to make distinctions, because you never really know that you are you, and that you are really in the right place, unless you can contrast yourself with some other people who are, after all, not quite in the right place. and some other people who are very much in the wrong place. And then, through having this succession of comparisons, you know that you're okay. Well, the insect has exactly the same arrangement. People who want to go on, and are in quest of immortality and have their bodies frozen in case there should develop in the future some technique by which they could be revived. But I really don't go for that idea, because nature has mercifully arranged the principle of forgettery as well as the principle of memory. If you always and always and always remembered everything, you see, you would be like a piece of paper which had been painted over and painted over and painted over until there was no space left, and you wouldn't be able to distinguish between one thing and another. It's like when a whole bunch of people start to scream and make noises and out-scream each other, and soon you can hear nobody. So in that way, one's memories become screams, and nature mercifully arranges that the whole thing be erased, and you begin again. You see, it doesn't matter in what form you begin, whether you begin again as a human being, or as a fruit fly, a butterfly, or a beetle, or a bird. It feels the same way that you feel now. And in one chance in 1,000, maybe, one of those balls will become like the planet Earth, and slowly upon it will arise what some people might call a disease, called the bacteria of intelligent life. And they have a notion, these things that we call alive, that they ought to go on. They have a fixed idea in their heads that they should keep on doing whatever it is they're doing, and they should always be doing it better. So they divide themselves into different species, and these species compete with each other in order to, as it were, flex their muscles and get better and better at whatever it is they are. And they go on doing this until one species really establishes itself as top species in the particular area on the particular planet. As we, human beings, Homo sapiens, have established ourselves as top species on Earth. We reproduce, not only biologically, but we reproduce artistically, technically. Just for a moment, I want to put in an aside about biological reproduction. See, when I think to my grandfather, whom I knew fairly well, he was, when I was a little, that we are almost perpetually in the same place, as the French proverb says, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more it changes, the more it's the same thing. Well, that means then, you see, that existence, the feeling of being, is a sort of spectrum. Just as light is at one end red and at the other end violet. And you have to have these extremes in order to have color at all, in order to know light. So you see, likewise, we have to have the experience that there is somebody else, something else going on altogether out of our control, in order to have the experience of being me.
We had heard about overdosing.
Life is worthwhile, and existence is worth going on with. In order to bring out that feeling, just as the red brings out the violet, there has to be in the back of our minds, maybe very far away, the comprehension that there is something that could happen that absolutely mustn't happen, that is the horrors, that is the screaming mimes at the end of the line. We have to know that's there. And every so often, that has to happen. Because if there isn't the experience that we go through, called the screaming mimes at the end of the line, where everything has gone wrong, like just before he died, the British novelist Arnold Bennett said, "I feel somehow that everything's absolutely wrong." You know? So the possibility, even the the imagination that there could be such an experience in the back of our heads is the background which gives intensity to the sense that we call feeling good, feeling that it's all right. I won't say seriously, because this isn't really serious, it's sincere. Ask yourself very sincerely, if that is so, if, in other words, the place in which you are now is the place where everything and everybody else really is, only there's an arrangement to pretend that you ought to be somewhere else. So the place where you are is the place where you're always pretending you ought to be somewhere else.
It's a riddle.
And this is the nature of life. This is the pulse. I ought to be somewhere else. So it's a kind of a gazum like that, see? When if you discover that that's the trick that you're playing on yourself, you become serene. And you don't entirely give up the game because you've seen through it. But you say, it really might be fun to go on playing.